Welcome to the Nordic Mythology podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand, owner of the company Horns of Odin and Mythology, if you've been following our socials. But before we get into that and our main show, I do need to plug our Patreon. I know I say it every single week, but it's how we keep the show going. Those numbers have dwindled a little bit recently, so if people can pop over there and check it out, we would appreciate it. No, in all seriousness, it is how we keep the podcast going. It's the life force behind of this. Me and Mags and I don't take anything out of this. It is a passion project per se, but the money we do receive funds everything on the back end. So we get to kind of turn up and just do the show and talk with really awesome people. And that's what keeps us doing it. But we do have to have some level of funding behind that, and that's why we do the Patreon. Recently, we probably have slacked a little bit on some of the bonus stuff, and I'll hold my hands up. You know, we have been quite busy in our own lives, but we're coming back heavy next week, I think, with a smutty reading of literature. I don't know how to word that, Mags. Do you want to help me out?
Yeah, I mean, let's call it like a steamy look at steamy takes of the Viking Age.
Yeah, so we're going to look at some smutty literature with Claire Muller and read some passages, get our opinions, see maybe what's accurate, what's not accurate, maybe get some techniques. I don't know. Hey, I know what I'm going to learn. So they're going to start out as Patreon exclusive episodes. If it becomes popular, we might move it on to like a main show. So yeah, if you want to get that and hear that earlier, pop over to our Patreon /Nordic Mythology podcast. Starts from £3 a month, and it really, really does help us keep going and help all the things on the back end and the production, because it does take a bit of money to get these things out every week.
And it helps out our wonderful editor, social media person, like all of these wonderful people who you don't hear from too often. Like the Patreon is how we keep them doing their wonderful jobs.
And it's how we've been able to do 260 episodes. It's how we put out a quality product. It's how we do it week in, week out. It's not something we kind of take lightly. And I know it sounds like we bang on about it, but it is literally how we're able to do it. And if you can't support, 5-star rating, positive review wherever you get your podcast, like, share, subscribe on YouTube, all those things. They seem really small, but just taking a few seconds to do it might mean that somebody else finds the podcast. We reach a different audience. We hit the algorithm in a certain way, and they let things be seen that maybe weren't before. So they all do help. And with that said, let's jump into today's show, which I'm really excited for. It's a little bit of fun and information, I think. So I'm joined by my lovely co-host and in-house archaeologist, Mags Havgar.
Hi, everyone. I am actually, I know, I feel like it's become my catchphrase now that I say I'm very excited about this episode, but like it's genuinely true. But also for this episode specifically, we had some changes in the schedule, and I pitched to Dan, why don't we like reach out to our community and to our patrons and ask if they have any questions, and essentially just make the entire episode just us answering those questions. So it's essentially an like ask me anything or ask us anything. Yeah. I tried to do like ask us anything relevant on our Discord, and then I love how you like took the ball and you rolled with it, and every other place you reached out you just said ask us anything, and I was like, we can really be hit by anything.
Well, you know what, I can vet it. We can but you know what, all these episodes get edited, but you can also watch live through our YouTube and through obviously Patreon. So sometimes we say stuff that probably gets taken out, and well, I say I say some things that
you're sometimes not alone on that end. You are not alone on that end, Dan.
So if you do want to catch the kind of uncensored, unfiltered, not that we say that much, then obviously there is the Patreon and the YouTube.
You're probably going to hear a lot more ums from me because I take long breaks to think, which I think Sam, our wonderful editor, I think he snippets a lot of
yeah, he does. So yeah, today is going to be a lot of fun. there is going to be, information there. We have some pretty serious, heavy questions from people. So we've kind of
and some really fun, lighthearted ones.
Yeah, that's it. So we've compiled a list of fun ones that are history based, some that are just about me and you and kind of our own journey and learn a little bit more about us. But then there are some that are specific to the Viking Age, where we're going to give what knowledge we have. If we don't have the knowledge, we will say we don't know this one way or the other, or we have maybe a thought one way or the other. We'll say that. But if we don't know for sure, we'll let you know. And either I'll point you into an episode that I can remember where maybe we've covered it, or
I can try to think of sources off the top of my head or do quick Google Scholar searches live in real time.
Exactly.
Also, if just to give our listeners a little peek behind the curtain for fun, you say we've compiled a list, which we absolutely have. That being said, there are a couple of channels that we've reached out to people for questions that I don't have access to. So some of these questions I have genuinely thought about for a couple of days straight and looked into.
True,
and there are a couple of questions that Dan is going to hit me with that I have not heard before. So this might get real fun.
I did feel, I just felt bad about that.
No, don't, because I saw as I saw the channels you reached out to, and I was like, "Ooh, cool." There are some questions here I don't have access to. It's going to be fun to see how I respond to those in real time.
Like I say, so just so everyone knows, everything's going to be as accurate as we can be, kind of off the fly and from our memory. And my memory isn't that great, but I've learned a lot in the years of doing this. So hopefully we'll be able to answer them somewhat. If we can't, we'll be honest and say we can't, and we'll try and point people in the right direction. There is one question here that I'm going to read out, even though I don't think that we'll know the answer to, because I think it's an interesting one, but also one that I would like to book somebody for in the future. So we're going to give it our best go. Obviously, the non-historical ones we'll just have fun with. But the serious ones, we've got enough knowledge now to muddle on through.
Sure we do. Yeah. No, yeah, we do.
Can't be any worse than the AI memes that I'm seeing all the time on Facebook.
Oh, geez, Louise. You need to get off of Facebook, Dan. You're on Facebook way too much.
Well, you know what? Did you see? So we have, and I don't know how to pronounce this gentleman's name, who has actually been on the podcast, and he's coming on the podcast in a few days. So Margrethe Videlin. I'm not best with.
Oh, he's the one coming on with Emma Thompson, right?
No, he's coming on his own. So he's assistant professor of medieval literature at Haskell Islands and he's from Reykjavik.
Oh, yeah.
And he's coming on to talk about ethnicity in the Viking Age.
Fun.
And within the sagas and the whole Blauman, and he's done some paper on it. But he posted an interesting post that he posted a post. Yeah, he posted a post. And what it was about was that academia.edu had been using AI to turn people's articles into a podcast. So an AI podcast where it took the article and then just kind of
Excuse the fuck out of me. That is whoa.
So basically it says an AI, so he got a notification that one of his articles, and this was what the notification said, an AI created a podcast of your paper, Rules of Constitutive, and I can't see the rest of the title. So he's kind of just gone in, looked at it, created a podcast from that, read in an AI voice, but also I assume if it's a podcast, it's not going to just be a reading of the paper. It's going to be some sort of conversational interpretation of.
Oh man, I really, really hate that because academia.edu is one of the most brilliant sources to get access to open access published works, but then not having control over whether or not I'm not necessarily AI to me is very murky and very difficult for me to kind of tackle. I'm not super pro, but like I understand that it can be used ethically and responsibly as well, although I would argue that for the most part that's not being done at the current moment.
I would agree.
And that makes me feel icky.
Yeah, so Maddox said in the chat that the AI has 2 voice characters that discuss the content, which is so weird because how can you discuss a scholarly paper that's, I guess it's reason, but it's...
You know what? We should move on from this because we're going to make the whole episode about us discussing this.
And that's not even a question.
I'm not saying we shouldn't discuss it because we 100% should, but that's not the topic for today's episode.
No, we could talk about that a little bit with Arne Grimmer when he's on in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into some questions. Do you want to just go straight to the heavy ones, or do you want to have some...
Have you categorized the questions anyway, or have you just
I've
chucked them in there?
I've gone serious and fun. So that's
okay.
That's all the best you got out of me.
Okay, because I was thinking maybe we start with maybe a history related something or other.
Okay. Oh yeah, I know. Podcast. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna go easy on you, Mags, because I know that you've researched this one. So, I don't even know how you pronounce these names. I'm going to struggle today. Bjarke. Bjarke.
If it's a Scandinavian name, I'm sorry. Bjarke.
From our Discord, so from our patron as well. How much do we know about bees and Vikings? Did they use beehives, etc.? And I think that's a fun little question because it kind of segues into the whole mead making that we're doing at the minute.
Yeah, and this was funny too because I sent you a screenshot yesterday of me on my phone, literally be like prepping for tomorrow's episode, be like, Jen, because that question got me like, how much do we know about bees?
Well,
so I literally did a little, I wouldn't call it a deep dive, but I genuinely tried to see how much research had been done on this specific topic, and I got into it a little bit, and it turns out that when it comes to, from what I've read, it now looks like, so we know that mead was a drink in the Viking Age. And we also know from especially the Poetic Edda that, for example, Odin is described as using honeyed words. So there's a reference to honey. So with the little caveat being beer was most likely the most common drink out of what we would now classify as alcoholic drinks, but mead was definitely present and accounted for. And then also having surviving documents, here comes one of my pauses, kind of referencing honey and things like that, tells us that there must have been bees. They must have used bees and likely then also had some sort of a beekeeping operation of sorts to have access to the production of honey and mead. But the actual, from what I could tell, findings of bees are not that common, which I understand because it's a very small insect and there are very particular kind of preservation states that have to be in place for the bees to have been preserved. So I know that from apparently the most information we have at the current moment is from the Coppergate excavations in York, from the Viking settlement in York, where they have found remnants of bees in the latrines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which then has been suggested to be traces of literally bees who have died during the production of mead that accidentally got into the mead, which is apparently not that uncommon in pre-modern productions of mead. I don't know how you guys do it today, but apparently a bee or two getting into the mead wasn't all that uncommon. back in the day. So we don't have that many bees, and I couldn't find any mention of beehives specifically. So I couldn't find any evidence for how they kept their bees, how they used like specific evidence for the keeping and maintaining of bees, but there's like multiple sources of evidence that point to the fact that bees must have been there.
Yeah, I had a quick little look now, and again, I don't know how reliable the source is, but it says bees would have been kept in skeps, which would be woven baskets made of straw and wicker, which I guess would kind of fit rather than a traditional beehive as to what
I also looked into that, but again, those are also organic materials. So as far as I could tell, we haven't found any of those. So it's a very plausible, in my book, I would look at that as a very plausible suggestion, but we still don't have any of them. So we can't say it for sure. Again, this is to my knowledge. If anyone out there has more knowledge of beekeeping in the Viking Age and have been like actually researching this and have sources that we can look at, please give me a shout. But this is what I could find.
Yeah, I think that what we can say for certain to kind of summarize, that it seems to appear in the mythology, in both the poetic and prose Edda, in terms of like when there is the description of Valhalla and you have the goat that gives mead to the Einherjar. I'm pretty just a goat, right?
Yeah, and also in Voluspa, when Odin makes a deal to get access to the recipe for mead, he uses honeyed words.
Yeah, so we have the. I'm sure it's in the prose and poet together. There is the goat that gives the Einherjar mead, and then you have the biggest story of Kvasir. I feel like I'm saying Kvasir there. Kvasir and his blood being made into mead, and then the mead of poetry, all these things. So we have mead, which is obviously honey, yeast, and water fermented. It's very much a honey-based alcohol that's a strong part of the mythology. It's put in there because and clearly seems to have stood the test of time because it is somewhat important. So we can probably assume that it had some importance to the people. And we know that bees were around. Bees have been around for a long time. Mead is the oldest alcohol known to man. Honey, obviously, again, people have been eating honey for as long as time. So we can assume that it's there, that it's been used, and that it's also that humans know that it's a very rich product or produce, that it's high in sugar, it gives you energy. There is that kind of innate knowledge about it, I think. Yeah. Which is why I think you would see it appearing in the mythology, in the stories, in different areas.
Like we could do a whole episode where we dove deeper into this, because I found hints of like this original source was in Russian, so I wasn't able to read it. Unfortunately, I don't read Cyrillic. So
the fact that you even know that it's Cyrillic, I'd just be like, I don't read Russian. That's
one thing is different language, but it's like it's a different alphabet altogether. So I wasn't able to get access to that, but I saw mention of like there being mentions of trading policies between what we assume to have been Vikings and Russians in like the 900s, I think this was. Where also there was this mention of the Russians have apparently trading things like honey and wax and bees. But again, so here's the thing, like exactly what you said. There are a lot of references that tell us that bees have been present, but I cannot tell you how they were kept or in what manner they were. So like, for example, the difference between a beehive and what's it called? A skep? A skef?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't potentially we, as in the larger academic research world, we don't necessarily know exactly how the bees were kept, maintained, what kind of what's it called? What kind of methods they used in comparison to current modern methods of beekeeping and production of honey and that type of stuff. So, but we know from all of these things that the bees must have been there.
I think it's worth probably mentioning, even though this is probably a little bit later than the Viking Age, but you can assume that they probably would kind of, it rings probably true through the, because obviously I'm doing the mead making at the minute, and I am a person who obsesses over things and has to learn as much as I can. I looked into kind of like just history of mead. I've watched a lot of videos on it, and it seems as though mead throughout history has been a very important drink. Obviously, honey is the principal thing. So something that's made from honey, yeast, and water, if that's considered to be valuable in any way, you would guess that it's the honey aspect that is the thing, because it's a rare produce. You don't have very much of it.
And the thing is, honey gives a different taste than a lot of other things, right? So at this moment, as far as we know, there was no sugar production in Europe, which means that from honey, you get a much sweeter taste than you would get from many other things.
Absolutely.
So that's also something that I would assume. Again, this is me thinking out loud. I would assume that honey also became valuable because of that, because it had a certain sweetness that you otherwise did not have access to.
So you have things like honeymoon. I don't know if you've heard of where they think the term honeymoon comes from. If this is wrong, please, anybody do correct me. But as far as I know from my quickish research, the term honeymoon comes from the Old English for honey month, where a batch of honey would be given to a newlywed couple, and they could have the time to a honey month. I think is where they could kind of separate away from the normal chores and just enjoy each other's company and get to know each other. But it has obviously some link to like honey being given as a present. That's from the 16th century, so like say after the Viking Age. And then also another one that I came up with, again, that seems to date from the 11th to the 16th century. So that's kind of in that ballpark. Is have you heard of a mazer, a drinking vessel? So it's a cup. And again, this is my quick research, but I think the etymology of the word amazing comes from this cup. And
cool.
That a mazer would be what would be used to drink the mead from. So if something was amazing, it would be as good as the mead. So it would be as good quality or as high regard. So just these little things, I think, show that they're, even though they're slightly from after the Viking Age, shows that throughout history, because we have things from before, that honey has always been seen as a very kind of natural, important, luxurious, kind of high-end produce. And it still is today. It's a very lovely 100%. Golden thing.
Absolutely. Next question. Should we go to the next one?
Yeah. I think we answered that as well as we can.
I mean, I don't have any more information to give. I wish I did.
No, me neither. No, we did good. Do you want a serious or a fun? Should we do a couple of serious and then just go with fun at the end?
Hey, can we do this extra nerdy?
Okay.
I have some dice from way back when I used to play D&D.
Okay.
Can I get like a D20, and then if it's less than 10, if it's 10 or less, we do like a serious one, and if it's
sure.
like 11 to 20, we do a fun, lighthearted one.
Yeah. Okay. Because there are some fun ones that are still Viking related, but not like completely silly. And there are some that are just completely silly, and then there are some serious.
Okay. So wait, hang on. Let me think. So from
what I was going to say is the completely silly ones we can leave till the end, and
Yeah.
we'll do
Okay. Yeah.
we'll do
Sounds good.
the 10 and above with the somewhat Viking age silly and the
Okay, cool. I'll be right back.
yeah. I was gonna say I was gonna sing some music, but I'm not going to. So I'm just gonna sit here in my lovely shirt that I put on for the show because it felt special. Felt like it was gonna probably go off the rails, and I'm on the second beer. So when the whiskey comes out, that's when things may be said.
What?
I was saying how I'm on the second beer, so at some point.
That's why I was thinking this is going to get more and more fun, especially for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. I have to check which one would be the easiest for my camera to pick up.
Oh, you can just. I believe you. I trust you.
I know, but it's fun.
We don't need to be. Okay. That's a nice purple.
Yeah. And then we have this one, which is a bit darker.
I think the purple one was better.
The purple one. Yep.
Yeah.
My original dice set. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So, do you want me to?
Nerd. I'm joking.
I
am. No, we all are.
In case anyone was like, and then you'll sing. Comment from Lee. What does that refer to?
Oh, I said that I was gonna try and sing some music whilst you were gone. Elevator music. I think it is.
It's time to roll the dice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a natural 20.
Oh, nice. Okay, so
on the first roll. Does it pick it up?
So what we got? So what are we going for? Is that the serious one?
That's the serious one.
Super serious, Maddox says. So I think we know.
Serious.
We know which one this is. We know.
Well, you know. I don't.
Well. All right. So next time this gentleman is on the podcast, you can thank him for this.
Okay.
Question.
Can I just do a quick shout out first to my best friend Ryan, who made me that super cute little box?
Yeah, of course.
When he was in college. Okay.
Oh,
hit me with a super serious question from, was it from Richard?
Richard Wakeman. So
yeah, I just like morphed his first last names together there.
Yeah, Richard Wakeman of the British Museum. He's been on here 3 times, I think, now.
Oh, he's so sweet.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe you won't think that in a second.
Let's see.
Do you think historical enactments wash over atrocities like rape, murder, and slavery?
You're having the best. I'm seriously giving this trying to give this the consideration it deserves.
It's a very serious question.
Okay, this is going to sound awful. This was not as bad as I expected it to be.
Okay, no, I mean, I don't know how it could get more serious than rape, murder, and slavery, to be honest. When I saw those pop up, I was like, that's a pretty heavy topic there.
Let me just, I can do the TLDR, too long didn't read answer, and then I can expand a bit more.
Okay.
If you want.
Yeah, sure.
So the TLDR answer is yes. I do think they do that. But the expanded answer of that is I think it entirely depends on the type of story you are trying to tell. So for example, if we are talking about I have a problem with historical adaptations and enactments that present a part of history that we know was very brutal, for lack of a better term. Like if we're talking about Viking raids on monasteries, or we're talking about periods of war and conflict, and sanitized versions of that, where like, I don't have an issue with it if it's like alluded to, because you can tell the same story without having to show it to you. Like, as long as things are not erased, I'm more okay with it. But if you're trying to tell a history of like 19th century, like early 19th century South United States, and you do not take into account for the atrocities that those states are built on, I'm going to have a problem with the story you're trying to tell me.
It's incredibly tough, isn't it?
Yep.
Because let's stick with the Viking Age to try and make this as bite-sized as possible, because it's a huge topic. Now, Vikings are cool.
Yep.
Like that's just the Vikings are popular. Vikings are
100%.
everywhere. But a lot of people identify with the Vikings, and it makes them very happy. And they look at the positive traits. Well, it's not. We don't even know what the traits are, but the traits that we see as in like a modern sense of being noble, like noble and on. I don't know why these things kind of pop into my head when you talk about Vikings, but I think that's what most people think is like noble and honest and strong and kind of powerful.
Well, those are attributes that have been, heavily attributed to it. So
So I think people see that and they like it, and also when you're talking about a fictional world, which movies or like historical enactments, it's tough, isn't it? Because when it's fictional, it's like these are these really fun, not fun characters, but they're ones that people really like. So you can't always make them the baddies. In which case they were in a lot of cases. They've gone. Again, it's how you look at it. It's perspective, isn't it? If you are in Western Norway and your family's struggling to farm, so your father and eldest brother go out and raid to find riches so that you can then have a better life, so you don't starve in every winter. That's not a bad thing. You can understand that. But if you're in England in a monastery and then these guys come over, I say guys because predominantly I would have said probably be guys, come over and just beat you, kill you, steal your stuff. We know some accounts sodomize. They're the bad guys. So it's perspective becomes a thing too.
Perspective 100% becomes a thing. And I do think, like, I was thinking about this when you just said what you did, that like there's this very interesting binary of always having like good guys versus bad guys, which is like, so you're on one side or the other, or maybe you're in like a murky middle place, but not everyone can be in that murky middle place. It's like the vibe that I'm getting from, like, they tried to make it kind of as palatable in a sense of like put it into perspective, but that's what I think becomes so difficult with historical enactments, because if you put people into that binary, people who are supposed to be from that time period, it is extremely difficult to adapt it in a way that makes sense for our audience today. I'm saying our audience is in like people who are currently alive in the modern day. Just because, like we've spoken about innumerable times, the ways people thought and the way they lived their lives, we only have glimpses into things that give us hints of what it could have been like. We don't actually know exactly what it was like. But then also translating that onto screen in a way that makes sense for modern audiences is incredibly challenging. So what I'm thinking, like,
It's
to kind of reevaluate my answer to Richard's question is that, like, I have an issue with historical enactment products that try to make a historical period seem like something we know most likely it wasn't. Meaning that okay, so here's the thing too, because something I thought about. I don't want everything that is created to be based on the Viking Age to be pure violence porn. Because that also tilts the angle in an unfortunate way, because it was extremely brutal compared to our way of life today. But at the same time, the Viking Age wasn't just brutal. And I'm not talking about the fact that, oh, let's not focus on the war and whatever, but like every aspect of Viking life would likely have been more brutal to our senses.
Yeah.
So I'm my answer to Richard's question is yes, I think that they gloss over too much, but I also, instead of like, the answer to that, I think, isn't simply to give us like violence porn, but to make enactments that are incredibly nuanced. That if you don't show it on screen, at least like you could show it on screen, but like in the background, or like just the fact of how nuanced everything was, like famine, winters, just temperature, how you had to survive for like food, trade now, like all of that. I'm not. This is, yes, it's so difficult. I'm like trying to say something and then I get lost in my own train of thought.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we also watch these things as escapism, and we don't want them all to be murder, rape, and slavery through and through. Even though those things happen and were probably pretty prevalent, it becomes a little bit too much if it's everything, every step, all the time, kind of pushed into your face. And it depends on the program or the movie or the piece of media, whether it fits to tell them. Now, I think it's one thing maybe not showing it or maybe hinting at it, and then another thing maybe trying to pretend it didn't happen. And then I would say that's completely wrong. If you try and say it didn't happen or put something out that would suggest that, then that is wrong because it did. But I think also to make something that maybe if it just doesn't fit into that piece of media in that moment, also it's okay to maybe not have it in there because you're making
absolutely
a piece of media for every. Sorry, let me just finish. You're making a piece of media maybe that has to be watched by millions of people, and I'm sure there are probably some. Let's say Vikings, the TV show. There's probably there's probably tons of legislation and tick boxes they have to go through to get that thing made, and so many scenes that they can have with a graphic nature, or so many scenes that can suggest, rape, murder, slavery. We talk about those three main things. They'll be able to put that in certain places, and you'll have somebody that say, no, that's too much, you take that down. You have to then take into account people who have suffered from these things and maybe be triggered by these programs. So it's such a complex topic that I don't know the answer.
No, me neither. But as my last kind of part of trying to grapple with this question, which is a great question, by the way. I just wanted to respond to a comment that we got in the chat right now from Maddox, where he says, every story is told for the audience at the moment, which will always leave out detail. It's less of a notion of glossing over, in quotation marks, and more just focusing on the bits that you're trying to convey. And on one hand, absolutely, I totally agree with what you're saying, Maddox. Absolutely. I am not trying to condemn or too heavily criticize the people who are. I'm not talking about the studios here. I'm talking about like the creative people involved in these types of projects, because I know that they work their asses off, and I've never worked in that field. So I want to be a little bit, credit where credit is due. That's not my kind of field of expertise or anything. But at the same time, I have seen shows that I wish the creative people involved in historical enactments like this had more time to focus on verbal, less like silent communication. What I mean by that is the amount of things you can do with sets, with lighting, with props, with how things are arranged. And I'm not saying that's not being done, but I'm saying that there are ways to hint at things without shoving them in your face, hint at things that might not necessarily be super duper relevant to your story, that at the same time acknowledge different things.
I think that's a great point, because again, not all storytelling is equal. So it's about how you portray those things. Because if you so I'm reading the book. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called Babel, and it won like it won book of the year.
I haven't read it myself yet, but I'm really looking forward to it.
For me, I'm going to finish it, but I'm not enjoying it that much because it's about British history and colonialism. And for me, I think that the author has focused too much on maybe a preachy side to try and use the book as a whole to educate or get a point across about the atrocities of the British Empire. For me, it takes me completely out of the story because it comes across as too much. And a lot of these things I already know, and there's no way to deny what the British did, and it's not in any way that sense. But for me, for the story, it loses its interest to me because these moments where it's a little too heavy on like this, it pulls me out of the story, and I'm like, I already know this stuff, or like I get it by now. Like I've got it. We get it, and I find that kind of then a bad piece of media because it's just pulled me out of it.
Well, for someone else, those same aspects might be the selling point. Yeah,
exactly. They love it. But then you put it next to. Did you see the Netflix documentary Adolescence? Was it?
Oh no, I haven't seen it yet.
Where again, but for me, I think that was amazing because I think it was this really difficult topic that was told in a really interesting way. That was at no point really felt like it was like ramming the issue down your throat. It was just told through a story that made you feel, and by the end you were kind of like, yeah, there is this issue that we probably need to look at. But it kind of just happened naturally, and you grasped that yourself. So again, I think the piece of media and how the story's told is so important when it comes to this stuff, because some of it through a good story you kind of think on those things yourself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It is a difficult question, but like when I'm saying
there's no answer to it, I don't think.
There is no answer to it. So, but TLDR, yes, I do think they gloss over it too much. But at that same time, I don't know how to fix it because I also don't just want like a Game of Thronesy violence porn story told at me.
It's not,
because then I'm like, that wouldn't be correct either. But that's like, again, I don't have more to give, I think, to this question. I need to think about it more. If I could, in order for me to come up with something that would be interesting to listen to instead of just listening to me rambling and like brain dumping.
Yeah, I guess my last point on it is the piece of media has to be interesting. And I don't want to, I feel like I shit on this film all the time on the podcast, which I'm not. The Northman by Robert Eggers, again. I think that is an insanely good film that has been researched well. And if you're into Viking stuff, you're going to pick up on all the little Easter eggs, all the research, and it's done so thoughtfully and carefully, I think, to the culture that it's showing. But if you're not interested in this, I can clearly see why. When I was looking through the comments on Facebook when the film came out and the reviews, people were like, boring, don't get it, bit shit. And like, I can understand why people who aren't deep into this had those thoughts.
But that also just shows you cannot make a piece of media that is for everyone. That is actually impossible, and you shouldn't. I don't think you should try. You should be aware of who you are trying to make it for, and either they will like it or they won't. And maybe people you didn't think would be interested in it will be interested in it.
There you go. All right, roll your dice.
Okay.
Let's see where you get.
Should I do it by the mic so that you get the ASMR part of it? Or?
Yeah, go on. Why not? Look how excited you are.
I haven't rolled the dice in so long. That is a 7.
Oh, okay. So we're going down to the fun-ish ones.
For context, guys, I watch a lot of actual play online. I watch a lot of Critical Role, a lot of Dimension 20. But myself, I have not had the wherewithal to play myself. So I look at people and listen to people roll dice all day, every day, but I haven't rolled the dice in literally 3 years at least. So this is very exciting for me.
Yeah. All right. this
Dan
one.
is like, okay, enough about that. Let's
No,
go.
no. No, sorry, I was reading the
No.
chat and zoned
Go
in. These we'll do these two back to back. We can get through these
Okay.
probably quite quickly. We're never going to get through all these questions. We're
We can try to do speed rounds.
We're 50 minutes in.
Jesus Christ.
And we've done 2. But these are quicker. All right. So Paul Peterman, Peterman asked, with no restrictions, what Viking events would you visit for yourselves or for me through the business?
I think that first question was aimed at you, Dan. And then the second question was for us, because I read that one.
Yeah, I kind of split up and made it so it was for both of us. I included you, Max.
Okay. Oh, it's very sweet. Well, you start this one.
Okay. With no restriction, what Viking events would I visit? I would love. We almost were going to go to the historical tattoo convention this year, which is going on right now. But it was too short notice.
We couldn't make it work, but we really wanted to.
Next year, I'm going to try and start it earlier so we can get there, because that looks like a lot of fun. There's a lot of really awesome people there. There are people from that we've had on here, the hosts we've had on here. So I would love to get to that. Obviously, Midgard's Blood, as always, is fantastic. And I would like to go to Fire in the Mountains in America. That looks amazing.
That looks fire.
Nice. And then what is the one up in Scotland where they burn the boat? I've forgotten the name. I'm going to quickly search for
the one where they burned the boat.
Yeah,
why do I not know about this?
They make a boat and then they burn it and like send it out. I don't think it's Upper Helle. I thought it was Largs. I think it is. Pretty sure it's Largs Viking Festival. Let me double check. And I think they make like a replica boat and then set it on fire and like. Yeah, they do. So it's the Largs. They don't push out to sea. Sorry, they put it on the beach and they burn it. And I always think that looks really cool, and I'd love to just kind of go there for the business. You know what? I love trading events, but I'd also I wouldn't want to. Obviously, money doesn't really drive me. That's not who I am. I like just doing nice stuff. So for the business, I guess I'd like to do Midgardsport because it's fun.
But that's something that I was thinking about. That would be so fun to do together sometime too. Because I've only been there once, and I didn't go to the actual Blut. I only went to the Midgard talks. So I'm not like super into like metal and stuff, but like it would still be fun to check out the festival. Also because it's like an hour and a half away from where I live, so it's easy for me to peace out if it's not for me.
Yeah, no, I think that we should do that next year. Let's kind of book them in earlier, and we'll
next year. Hopefully, I'm also like back on track in sense of like being a regular person in society and not just crashing out on my couch. So
yeah, are there any Viking events that you would visit? I guess maybe you know more scholarly ones.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So I can't really think of like necessarily specific like events, but I can think of places that I would like to go that I still haven't been to.
Okay.
Like it would be really fun to do. Like I haven't been in Lofoten at the Lofoten Viking Center.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been to York, to the Viking Center there. It'd be really fun to go by the Faroe Islands and the Orkney Islands.
Yeah, I'd love to get, and we could go and see Tom Muir. Mm-hmm. You could tell us a little story.
How fun would that be?
And I'd have to have a pipe. I'd have to smoke a little pipe. And
maybe we could get like little like what are they called? Those like wind muffles for like our mics, so he could bring us out to like one of those places that he talked about, like the Neolithic houses and stuff.
Yeah, the cairns, are they? I think.
Not just cairns, but like actual buildings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we should.
That'd be
fun.
really fun. And I'd love to go by like they don't necessarily have to be like Viking centered, but like also like Viking festivals and stuff aren't really my jam. I get kind of Ibsen, get down from there. Sorry.
It's all right. It's dog life.
Sorry, honey. I haven't put on a new sheet. You can't jump on that bed yet. But yeah, stuff like I really want to go to Moskva in Denmark. That museum looks insane. That would be fun to do together because they have a bunch of like cool Viking stuff, I think, as well. Oh, and I haven't been to Roskilde.
Yeah.
That's where they have like the most amount of Viking ships in the world.
Yeah.
They're crap compared to ours. Come at me, Denmark. No, I'm just kidding. But the fact that I haven't been to Roskilde is a bit of a professional shame.
There's so many places that
many.
If we're just going by places,
Iceland. Jesus, I haven't been to Iceland.
Have you never been? Like the Danish museum, I would love. I guess they have like the National Museum. I would love to go to. They collected some stuff like the British did.
They sure did.
The Swedish, and then all the small kind of museums in between.
For fuck's sake, Ibsen, get down.
And yeah, the longhouses I would like to go to. Is it Lofoten? What's the
Lofoter?
What's the one that's like 3? Is there another one?
There's also Veien down here in the south.
Maybe I'm.
And you also have the one down in Stavanger.
Hang on, I'm gonna just quickly look at this because I think that our guest next on Wednesday works at one. Rebecca Vallis. I'm just gonna check. Everyone, bear with me 1 second. This is your turn
Cue
to do
elevator music.
Oh yeah,
Dan is
Lofoter.
Just say. No. Okay, listen. Say Lofot.
Lofot.
R.
I can't do that. Lofoter.
Yeah.
Yes, Rebecca works there, so we might talk about that actually on Wednesday.
That's lovely. I'm excited about that.
But yeah, it would be nice to get there. And the second part of this question was, I guess we kind of covered it anyway. If we were to take up a road trip of Viking events / sites, people to visit, etc., what would that look like?
I mean, I feel like we kind of answered it, but we can try to kind of list them off quickly. So first of all, Birka Tattoo Festival, which we were planning on going this year, but it just didn't work out. Secondly, we'd love to go to the Orkney Islands, Tomur. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Multiple places here in Norway, in Sweden, and in Denmark. If we're doing a road trip, we've got to go by Gotland. Yeah. I mean, it's difficult to get there by car, but, we'd make it work somehow.
Magic.
Yeah, magic.
We'd get there.
Excited.
And then we would road trip from I'd come and get you. We'd hire a car. We'd drive into Sweden, pop off over to Gotland, come back, down into Denmark, do that stuff.
Oh, I love how you do not know like the.
No, I've driven it. I've driven
sure, but like, why would we go back to Norway to go to Denmark? Because we have to drive through Sweden to get to Denmark if we're going to go by road, unless we're doing the ferry. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Norway, Sweden, then Gotland, back into Sweden, over the little bridge into Denmark.
Yeah, Öresund.
We'd stop at the Bay of Tapestry on the way down the way before we got and then we'd pop over the pond, go see York, and then from there.
I mean, we'd have to go by Ireland.
Yeah, then we'd have to. I've never been to Ireland.
We can't. You haven't. I've been to Ireland.
So we'd go to Ireland, look at that stuff. The Isle of Man, we missed that off. We'd have to go there.
Yep. And then we'd have to like I guess we'll do like a weird like janky little circle where we like after Ireland and Scotland we'd like then get on planes and go to Orkney Islands, Faroe Islands, then maybe end off in Iceland.
Iceland. Yeah. So basically everywhere is the answer.
Like pretty much all of Northern Europe at this point.
we just hang out for a good while.
Yep.
All right, roll your dice. Let's see what
Okay.
got.
Here he comes. That's a 4.
Okay, that sounded like it didn't roll at all. That sounded like that
You
just
want me
dropped. No. Okay. I'm not calling foul.
Okay.
Okay. Who has been your favorite guest? David Jorgensen. Well.
Oh, that's hard to pick
one.
But I can't pick just one though. Also because my memory is shit.
I'd have to like have a list up almost to like see.
Yeah, I will say like I will have 3 that come to mind.
Okay.
That all kind of get into what I was kind of unexpectedly enjoyed or like got into like, oh shit, I've never thought about this before. Conversations where I knew what we were getting into and it was just as much fun as I imagined it would be. And then getting insight into new stuff that I kind of knew about but still had also like a shit ton of fun. And so the first one would be Ryan with the astrology. And then Marianne multiple times with the gender and burials. And then Tom with the Orkney Islands and fairy tales and stuff.
Stories, yeah.
Yeah.
So Tom is up there.
Sorry for not remembering everyone's last names. That's why I stuck to first names.
Ryan, for me, the episode of this year so far has to be like Ryan Eckerson because that episode with space just blew me away.
Yep.
I didn't know what to expect from it, but it just was, unbelievable. And he's coming on hopefully in June.
Oh, really?
Fun. So that should be fun. Yeah, that was one that just straight away came to my mind. Like, it's still, I can't remember all 260 at this point, but that was one that like straight away came to mind of like that was a moment of like, oh fuck me, this is something I've not heard on here ever before, and also it's just incredible. Then
okay, time to. Oh no, okay.
Oh, and then I was just gonna say, obviously the like classics with Heilung and Einar, Alexander Dremen, Alexander Ludwig, Peter Stormare, like some really cool actors and musicians that I feel so lucky that I get to have spoken to some of those people. Magnus Brun, yeah, I've been really lucky to kind of sit down with some amazing people on the podcast. So it's tough to pick one. So I think that the one that came to mind, like just like that, was the Ryan Eckerson episode. That
I love how Ryan Eckerson was the first one that we both threw out there.
Yeah, and I think
he really blew us away this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking through kind of like the list now.
I think we kind of answered a different question then too, because there was one question that was something along the lines of, "What guest have you been most surprised by?" or something like that. And I think he definitely falls into that category.
Oh, Arnis Federovicius has just popped up on there. That was one that stood out, and I think will always stand out. That it was just a moment of, Jesus Christ, this is something that I didn't know about. I've been wanting to learn about the space and stars side of it for a while, and I didn't know what to expect. I came into it kind of almost like, not really sure what there's going to be. And then it turned out there was actually a lot, and it was amazing. And he was also a really good talker.
Yeah, and he had that PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can impress me any day with a good slideshow.
Oh, is that how it's done?
Apparently.
All right. Roll the dice. Get the dice
Okay,
rolled.
I'll try to roll it better now. Okay. Here it
Phil,
comes.
Phil said Emma Thompson. That's a really Emma Thompson's been fantastic.
Emma Thompson is great.
So she's coming back on with.
Oh, and go ahead.
No, she's coming on with Jack, her colleague, in the next week. Actually,
yes.
Next Sunday.
It's going to be very exciting. And I also have to give a little shout out to my previous boss, Christian Løksner-Østrud, who was on a year and a half ago or something, where we talked about ships and boats.
Yeah.
Because that was really fun. Because him and I have never had the opportunity to have a talk that specifically about just boats in general. So that was really great. It was so fun that he had the time to get on the podcast. Because I know that he's really, really busy.
Yeah. I want to shout out to, I guess, special mention to like Claire Boulay, Jonas Flores, and Ed,
of course,
and Ed Gamester, who just, and Mateus, obviously, because without saying, like the people, the staples of the people who come on time and time again and have really kind of got fun and good time.
Okay, are we ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, that is a 10.
We'll go with serious.
Okay,
because we've not
done too many sillies. Yeah.
They're not super serious. All right, this is the one that I said I don't think we'll know too much about, but I'm going to read it because I would like to know more. So if you know somebody or if you can find. So how much is known about jewels in the Viking Age? I don't believe the Destroy 3 Shields version, which I don't even know what that is.
Give me a hot second.
Okay. Whilst Mags disappears and leaves me here on my own, I'm going to look at what Destroy 3 Shields is and see if I can, because I've never even heard of that. Okay, so Google. This is Google AI. So
no, don't. No, give me like a hot second. Jesus Christ.
Okay.
For those who are just audio listeners, I literally just left to get a book, and Dan is like,
no. Wait. I was trying to find out what
thumbs down to you, my friend.
No, I was trying to find out what the Destroy 3 Shields was.
Sure.
I never heard of that.
Sure, you did.
I was. You came back at a bad moment then.
All right.
I said before that I'd never heard of the Destroy 3 Shields, so I'm going to quickly Google it whilst you...
Destroyed 3... What do you mean? They destroyed shields.
What is that in terms of jewels? I don't believe they Destroy 3 Shields version. And
that's actually a good point. But don't use Google AI.
Well,
use like an actual result, please. Come on. I cannot sit here as the academic front for this podcast and let you ramble off something that Google AI put together. That would honestly chip away at my personal integrity.
See, but even Google AI doesn't come up with anything.
See? Great.
The Destroy 3 Shields Viking Jewel? I don't know. So all I'm getting now is like Holmgang, which is the one that I see all the time. But I don't know much about that. Do you know?
Okay, so they're talking about jewels and like stones, right?
No. Oh, bless you.
What?
No, duel.
Oh, duel. I heard jewel.
That's my accent.
Oh my God. That is so funny.
That's so funny.
I literally got the wrong book then.
That's why I was on about.
On me.
That's why I was on about shields and this, and you were just like,
I was like
shields.
I was like jeweled shields. Never heard about this, but I think I might have a book that would give me.
That's so funny.
Oh my God! I was prepping an answer in my head. Now that is absolutely not relevant. Okay,
that's funny.
Dual shields. Okay, cool. All right.
Dual. Well, so I do apologize. Yeah. I'm sure everybody's probably
no. That was on me. That was on me.
Well, I, so how much is known about duels in the Viking Age? I don't believe
I
that
don't know
destroy
much
3
about that.
shields.
I can tell you up front, I do not know much about that. That being said, I guess I don't know if he would know too much about that either, but I guess a good place to start would be Ben Raffield.
Yeah.
Because he's looked like he's really gotten into, warfare, violence, like tactics, military.
Yeah, he would be somebody to definitely start with or ask if he knows somebody. So I think that this is Wikipedia, and I'm guessing, which we've established isn't that bad of a source.
No.
The everything that the people typically when it mentions about duels is holmgang. That's kind of the term that comes up, and this says that holmgang is a duel practiced by early medieval Scandinavians. It was a legally recognized way to settle disputes. Maybe in some places, I don't know whether it's all places. The name holmgang may derive from the combatants dueling on a small island or holm, as they do in the saga of Egil Skallagrimson.
Yeah, that's
alternatively figurative in reference to an arena.
Yeah, that's why I said that I didn't know too much about it, because I will freely admit that I'd forgotten the term holmgang, but as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, right. As far as I know, there's no archaeological evidence for this, so I've only heard of it from written sources, and I haven't really looked into it, so I don't know whether those written sources are ones that have been established to likely originate from the Viking Age, or whether they are kind of tales that have been made based off of the Viking Age later. So I don't know.
It says again. I'm just trying to skip over. Like I said, we will find someone who knows a bit more about this. But there's a part that says the 13th century Vastgottelegen, a Westro-Gothic law, is a fragment of unknown late Viking Age law document from Västergötland, Sweden. Västergötland, yeah, what Max said, which stipulates the conditions for a type of judicial duel, either referring to a holmgang or envinge, a trial by combat. And it says, and then this is what I'll read this out, and then we'll look for somebody else. If somebody speaks insult to another man, you're not the something like you're not the like of a man and not a man in your chest. I am a man I am a man like you. They shall meet where 3 roads meet. If he who has spoken comes and not the insulted one, then he be as he's been called. No right to swear oaths, no right to bear witnesses, may it concern man or woman. So I'm guessing that's if you don't turn up, you are what they said you are.
Yep.
If the insulted one comes and not he who has spoken, then he shall cry Nithinger, I think, 3 times, and make a mark in the ground, and he is worse who spoke what he dared not to keep. So I'm not saying if the guy who was insulted turns up and the other guy doesn't, he's worse than what he called you, is what I take from that. And then the last part, now both meet fully armed. If the insulted one falls, the compensation is half a weregild. If he who has spoken falls, insults are worse. The tongue, the head's bane, he shall lie in a field of no compensation. I don't know.
I have to admit, I'm looking at the sources of that particular Wikipedia article too, and it seems like most of these sources are, I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I'm saying I don't know who would be, I would guess starting off with Ben Raffield, because he would at least know more what direction to point you in, because the most recent source from there is from 2004, and I've never heard about that guy before, and it also seems to not necessarily just be about the Viking Age specifically. The source is called Bystanders and Hearsayers First, reassessing the role of audience in dueling in a great effusion of blood, interpreting medieval violence. And medieval violence could be, we don't know whether they're talking about the UK, whether they're talking about all of Europe. So, like, yeah, I would say instead of us now spending 10 minutes looking for someone, I would say just starting off with Ben Raffled and go from there.
Yeah. Well, that's what we'll do. We'll have a look. All right. Do you want to roll the dice?
Oh, yeah, sure. I was just looking down at the incorrect book I got.
That's so funny.
That was so great. Oh my God. I have a feel. I was like, oh my God, this is going to become a clip. Okay, here it comes. That's a 16.
16. To be fair, they're not too serious. This one's up your alley. Jennifer asked, I would love more info on what kinds of fibers they could use. Obviously, wool and flax, but is there any evidence, for example, of them crafting silk or only trading for it?
Silk, I looked into this again yesterday just to be sure that I had my head screwed on right when I answered this question. Silk, as far as we know, you were not able to produce in Scandinavia, at least not at that time. So that must have been traded for. And there's also no evidence that points to it being something that was produced in Scandinavia. So likely that is a trade good, a trade commodity. We don't know then in what state it was traded in, whether you purchased like whole like swaths of finished cloth, or whether you traded for like threads that you would then make into pieces of textile. We don't know that as far as I can tell. When it comes to other types of fibers, that's something that actually got me thinking yesterday, because that depends on what you're asking about. If you're asking about clothing and other like types of usewear textile type things, wool and flax, so flax becomes linen, is pretty much the two main heavy hitters. That being said, wool and flax, yeah, sure, but there is a lot of factors that point to wool isn't just wool. You have a lot of different types of wool, and wool doesn't necessarily just come from sheep. So there is one analysis that I've seen off of the Oseberg wool textiles that points to the wool maybe having been from goats. And there are also a million different types of sheep. So, you know, it's almost like you have to test every single find to figure out exactly what wool we're talking about. How you do that, I don't know. Probably is very expensive. But of other types of fibers that were used in the Viking Age, I do know of hemp, big production of hemp, probably used for ropes and other types of string, and potentially also multiple other types of use. And we also have finds of nettle. So it seems like nettle was also something that would be used for fiber production. Don't ask me what nettle was used for specifically, but we have nettle evidence in the textile, this small parts of textile evidence that we have left from the Viking Age.
There we go. Nice. It's the best answer all day.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
All right. We're what, like an hour and 20. Let's do one more serious, one more fun. Then we'll.
But let's make the Q&A also going through questions that we missed.
That's what I was going to do. We'll wrap up this, and then we'll do like the more silly fun in the Q&A now that the whiskey's popped out. All right. The last kind of serious, it's not that serious actually. It's given enough money and time, what archaeological or historical site would you like to explore? I think it's a really good question, though.
Yeah. What do you mean explore? Like excavate or just visit
Yeah,
and study?
I think excavate.
My whole head being like, what do you mean?
I'm going to go with excavate. I think it's given enough time, money. Where would you just think maybe needs more, or not even? It doesn't have to be the one that's the most groundbreaking. Just the one that you like. That you're like, I want to know what happened here. Does one come to mind?
Multiple.
The one. Okay, I'll go first. Whilst you think, the one that comes to mind for me is probably like something like Stamford Bridge. For that, I don't think they know exactly where it was, and
So you'd have to go looking for it to begin with.
yeah, so they'd have to like find. I'm talking about like in a hypothetical world where if we could just like spend the money and time, we can find out kind of what happened. That's one that interests me because whilst we know what happened, I think that is such a pivotal battle in British history, if not the most pivotal battle in British history, because it completely that battle changed the whole of British history. Because if Harold hadn't had to march his army up to the north of Yorkshire to fight Harold Hardrada, he may have stood a chance against William the Conqueror, and Hastings may not have happened. Britain may not have been invaded by the Normans, and the Norman invasion completely changed the landscape of England and, well, the UK as a whole. So I would love to know more about that. And I want to know if that fucking berserker that everyone bangs on about all the time, who apparently stood on the bridge and fought off the whole English army, really did do anything, or is it just myth?
Yeah. I don't know if the archaeology would help you out there, bud, but you never know. Maybe.
You might find a skeleton with a guy with a pole stuck up his ass.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
Maybe. Oh man. What site would I?
Nothing.
No, so many. I can't pick. Okay, can I start with like maybe
Say a few. You can say a few. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay, so genuinely the one that springs to mind the most, just because, and I'm not really into what we call classical archaeology or the Roman period either, but when I was there last year, it blew my fucking mind how little of Pompeii has been excavated.
Oh, so you're not even going Viking. You're going.
That was the first one that sprang to mind.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. Mm.
And but here's the thing: there are already multiple excavations going on.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be because it's just, we still have a pretty we have a good overview of what happened there, but there's still such like big parts of that city, and it's a whole city. That's the only place I can think of where we have like a complete, like what we call in situ, like preserved on site, like time capsule of this horrific event.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, this is not a specific site, but I would love to know. Oh, it's going to be difficult though. All the farmers are going to yell at me for this, but I would love to know a bit more about like how all of Vestfold and Östfold fit together in the Viking Age, but like not just the Viking Age, but like almost from the Stone Age to begin, but specifically the Viking Age, because we have so many like finds from the Viking Age there, especially in Vestfold. Don't come at me, Östfold. I know that you're there and you're super valuable, and I see you and I acknowledge you and I love you. But in Vestfold, you have Olsberg and you have Sandefjord, you have Gokstad by Sandefjord, and you also have Kaupang. And it just seems to have been a lot of activity going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But like, at what points, like, how did all these pieces fit together?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I'm really curious about.
Oh, another one for me before we go into a fun one is I'd love further, I guess, investigation into like Lanzo Meadows and the whole kind of America as a continent
Sure. Yeah.
part of the Viking Age. Because obviously we know that Lanzo Meadows was more, it wasn't like a necessary settlement. I don't think it was I think it was a ship, like almost like a repair center, or with
there was activity there.
Yeah, but with the amount of rivets found, I feel like there's an idea that like there was some repairing of ships. Maybe that was just to turn around and go back. But I don't think for a second that they got there and didn't at least explore somewhere. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that they settled elsewhere, but even if it was just a single ship that went down the coast of East America, down like Canada, I guess down towards where New York, my American geography is awful, but down that way, even if it was a single ship and then they kind of had a look and then came back, I'd love to just find out that. I think there's more to it than just Lanzo Meadows. I think maybe there's no settlements anywhere else, but I think they will have at least had a look.
Yeah. At the same time, just to be a bit like, because I honestly will admit to that a couple of the other ones that sprang to mind for me was, places in Mexico and down in Ecuador specifically. But when it comes to those types of sites, I don't want one thing is like dreaming about it, but genuinely, and I don't mean to be a stickler here, but quite genuinely, I don't want to brainstorm like my favorite project to excavate in areas like that, because I generally do believe that it's such an important factor that the people who are currently descendants of, the original indigenous populations should be the ones to decide whether or not we put shovels in the ground. And currently that is not the case. Currently, they are not given the consideration and the weight that they deserve. But on not a but in that respect, but on your point of ships, that got me thinking that there are multiple ships from the Viking Age, specifically Gokstad Osberg, who have been shown to have been made of timber from the southwestern coast of Norway. So what today would be called Rogaland. And it would be really interesting because it almost seems like there were some sort of shipbuilding something go like that. I wouldn't say like industry in the modern sense, but it almost seems like there was kind of like a wharf or something happening there. So it'd be really interesting to kind of see if there would be evidence of, professionalized shipbuilding activity going on over multiple decades down in that area. That would be really fun. Or down in that area. It would be like almost a straight line from where I'm at. But yeah.
Perfect. All right. Last one we'll finish on. Just a silly one. We've had this on here a few times, but I don't know if we ever did it. If we ever did one for you. And someone, Hannah Cor. Why do people have such tough to say names? That's just more my ignorance of not being able to say them. Korhonen? And Hannah Korhonen.
Korhonen? Yeah.
Korhonen? Hannah
Maybe.
Korhonen.
Hannah, reach out to us if you are not happy with that pronunciation.
I'm sorry. What would be your Viking name and why? And is there something from your past or your skills or family line, etc.? We've had this before. I don't know if you did.
I don't think so.
So this was before your time. My name, which if you've not been with Hannah, you've shown your. I was gonna say bend your ass there, but that's like a British saying that you've shown your ass, as in like you've given away.
You're giving yourself away.
You've given yourself away. I don't know if I can say that about people. Let me just say that about random.
The chat is going wild right now.
Lots of random people. But you've given yourself away. It's not been a long time listener. Because I somehow I can't. Okay.
Can I introduce your name with a silly little thing?
Come on.
Although I know that this is not the connotation that it's given that it is actually June 1st today, I would like to introduce Dan's Viking name by saying Happy Pride Month, y'all.
You know what? You know what? It fits in. It fits in. Go on. What is my Viking name according to the chat?
According to the chat, Dan's Viking name, and I've heard this before, is Dan Dickbiter.
Yeah. And so this came about because there was a talk, I think it was this kind of question, and I was like, what would it be? It has to be something like really cool and strong. And then we were talking, and I was like, you know what? When it comes to fighting, if you're fighting for your life, you would do anything that you had to do. Yeah. And if that means I had to bite someone's dick off, then that's what's happening. And it kind of just stuck around as like, that would be the name, because, you know, they have some silly Viking names, don't they? Some of the, you know, like Olaf the Peacock, and some people get some bad ones. I can't remember them off the top of my head. And that was mine, was Dan the Dickbiter.
I love that so much.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta bite a dick.
Sometimes you just gotta.
You gotta. Sometimes,
Happy Pride, y'all.
If you know, if someone's trying to kill me, and we're especially back then when you didn't have like guns.
But also, we are not kink shaming here.
No, you do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
But if we're having a little scrap, and maybe like he jumps at me and I fall on my back, and he's like crotch just like lands right.
I love how we all know exactly what you're talking about, and you still keep going into these like explicit.
and he lands balls to like mouth. Like I'm doing what I've got to do, and that's just the way it goes. But Mags, I've been thinking about this today. I was like, what can Mags's?
Do you have a suggestion for me? Because I have one, because I deep dived into this.
Did you?
Yeah, because I took this question super seriously in the sense of like fun. Because I know for a fact that my name, my given name, Margrethe, or anglicized would be Margaret, which is why I go by Mags, because I don't feel like a Margaret in English. But that I knew for a fact that was not necessarily a Norse name. However, turns out, according to the Norwegian version of the Encyclopedia Britannica, which is called Store Norske Leksikon, which has the hilarious abbreviation SNL, there is a mention of a Norse woman's name from at least the 13th century, which likely makes it older, which is Margrethe, spelled slightly differently than mine. But my name then could have a Norse equivalent, but the original one is Greek, probably originally also then Persian, and it means pearl, as in like a pearl from like a sea pearl. So I found that there is the Norse word, or Old Norse word for pearl is pala.
Okay.
So it's pale in current Norwegian, but pala. And the reason that I went into that is because my mom has always mentioned the fact that my name means pearl. She used to call me like her little pearl and stuff.
Oh,
so I was like, maybe my name would be Pala or Margrethe.
Okay.
And for the little whatever it's called, like suffix of yours being Dickbiter, I want to hear from you guys too, but my immediate thought was Margrethe the Sightless, because my eyesight is really bad. Like if I lived in the Viking Age, it would be difficult for me, all. I would not see people unless they were this close to my face.
I do wonder how they did it. But mine,
I would be just like perpetually squinting.
Meg's the squinter.
Yeah.
I came up with Mags the disclaimer for you. That was my one that I came up with today. So,
and why is that?
Well, early on, you disclaimed a lot.
I sure did.
You covered. You didn't want to show your ass, Mags.
Nope, so I did not want to show any part of my lower body to anyone at any point.
So you you made sure what you said was correct. And now you don't do that as much.
Oh, thank you.
So there we go.
Mags, the disclaiming sightless. The sightless disclaimer.
Sightless disclaimer.
Say
that. No, you
doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it?
Not as good as a dick biting. You know.
Aww,
there we go.
Phil in the chat had a really nice one. Mags the short-sighted seeress.
Yeah, that's cute. There you go.
That is very sweet. Because I am short-sighted. Genuinely. I cannot. You are just a blur to me now, Dan.
Oh, you look so different without your glasses
I do
on.
look different. I have Gucci bags under my eyes because I'm very tired. For reference, for those who are only listening to audio, I have taken off my glasses. And it changes the visual.
You look so different.
Yeah, I do. This is part of my personality.
Yeah.
I have a librarian vibe going on.
There you go. Look at that.
Look at that.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap this up and then we're going to get into some more of the silly questions in the Q&A after. So if you've made it this far, please pop over to our Patreon /Nordic Mythology Podcast. You get a bonus episode every single week, which comes in the form of a Q&A with our guests. Obviously, this week we don't have a guest, so we're going to do some more of the silly questions, and it's going to be fun because my cheeks have now started to turn red from the whiskey. So that means that chaos usually ensues. Max, thank you very much. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at ArcheoMags, Archeo with a K.
There we go. And for me, Daniel_Farron1. I'm going to try and start doing more videos because it's last little rant. So I keep finding all these AI memes that I come across that are just completely inaccurate for like Viking history, and it drives me insane. And I found one the other day. So we're going to have Roderick Dale back on, who is an expert on berserkers. And I found one the other day that said how there was this find in Scotland of a cask that had this mix in of like, it was like a mushroom and something blend. And I was like, and basically this was why berserkers were thought to have eaten these mushrooms and go crazy. And I was like, that doesn't seem right to me. So I'm very privileged that through the podcast I've met many scholars. So I messaged Roderick Dale and I was like, just out of curiosity, this meme, what do you think about it? And he was like, I've never heard of it. I've never heard of the find. It's all pretty much complete bullshit. Give me a list about where the whole mushroom idea comes from. Without looking, I think it's the 17th century. And he was like, yeah, it's just inaccurate. So from that, we're going to book Roderick back on. But I was like, what do we do to counteract these memes that are clearly just made up? Other than me going in the comments, I mean, like, well, this is actually from a scholar who specializes in the berserkers. Here's what he said. So I'm going to try and make more reels.
Ooh, fun!
Around that, basically taking one that we find, and then maybe if I know the right person to ask them, and giving a counteracting argument to it. So to put the meme up and then be like, well, this is wrong because of this. Problem is, you can't produce a reels that's well thought out and with accurate information as quick as you can a shitty AI meme that takes 2 seconds.
No, but we're never going to win that battle, so we might as well not try, but we can still put accurate information out there.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and just kind of go through that and make some. So if you want to see those in the future, when I do get around to doing it, it's Daniel_Farron1. Horns of Odin for the business. Like I said, we just officially kind of became a meadery. We're making our first batches at the moment, doing some tests.
Congratulations!
Yeah, the tests.
Is this the point that I tell you that I've never tasted mead?
You can taste my mead.
Dan literally did a double take.
Yeah, you can. We'll send you some mead and you can try it.
Hey.
So yeah, that's really exciting. And then again, last thing, just the podcast. If you can like, share, comment, review, all those things, it really does help us out. It's not just a small thing. Those few seconds for you could really help us on this side. And that's it. Let's drink more whiskey and be silly.
Yeah, let's do it.